What's going on, podcasters and YouTubers? This is Hav here, one of your hosts from the Real Fan Review. Today with me, we got my boy Sanj.
Good evening, everybody. As always, it's a pleasure to be with you.
We got my brother, your brother B.
Hola, mi amigos.
And we got our man in the chair, Al.
How's it going, everybody?
Oh man, it's going good over here on this side, Al. I got to see Loki last week.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So listen, there's not really much news besides they're filming Indiana Jones Part 5. So once we get a preview for that, we'll definitely talk about it. But this week, pretty much what happened this week is Loki came out, episode 1, Glorious Purpose was out there this week. And then we also got a chance to watch In the Heights this week. So those will be the two topics we talk about this week amongst the four of us here. So let's get right started with that Loki episode 1, Glorious Purpose, and just get into all the thoughts, the theories, and just everything about the movie and the episode at least. Sanj, you got a chance to watch Loki this past Wednesday, man. Tell me your thoughts about seeing Tom Hiddleston reprise his role there as Loki.
Well, first and foremost, it was great to see him back as Loki. Because we all love his wicked genius, as it were, and all the hours of laughs that he's provided us thus far in the MCU. Are we doing spoilers yet, or
yeah, we can talk about it, but go from like the beginning. Start from like the beginning, and we'll work our way towards the end there.
All right, cool. So I mean, and it was it was great to get that call back again to Endgame. So you see how those scenes were mixed in again. Had a little bit of feels when you see all those scenes come back. You're like, it made you remember a little bit. But so when he picked up the Tesseract there, and we saw that part, but then we didn't know where he went to. But then, you see just him show up in the middle of a desert somewhere, and he's like, he thinks he's free, and right away these cats come and get him, and he's like, do you know who I am? And they just like lock him up. It's crazy. It's just like, whatever.
Yeah, man. And you caught that little nod there to Iron Man in the sand?
Yes.
Yes.
I was like, oh, come on, you can't do that. Come on, man. I'm a pro at this MCU stuff, so can't throw glimpses like that. But yeah, Brandon, like Sanjay just said, man, you see him get into the Gobi Desert, and one of the things that stood out to me right away was how fast that he saw people. He picked himself up and jumped on top of a rock to like proclaim himself. And I was like, the hell is he doing?
He's being Loki.
Exactly, which we learn more about as this thing goes on, because most of this show, Brandon, was pretty much a kind of like an understanding of who Loki is besides of what we know of him. Yeah. And I think it was just brilliantly done from beginning to end. What was your thoughts there about Loki?
I mean, we talked about this last week in our recap where I said, like, I know they're going to get to talking about his future self and how he died and do that. I'd expect to do it so quick, like, for him to have that montage. And, for this episode, it was really cool to get even from not even Loki's perspective, but Mobius, that's Owen Wilson's character, just kind of how he like broke down Loki's character for Loki and for us. Like, like they're like, like, what do you want? What are you going to do? Like, what do you want to do? He goes, oh, I'm going to rule space. He goes, you're going to rule space? Wow. He's like, that's great.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, that's great. And then like, just to like tear him down scene by scene and his motivations, just to like get Loki down to his core is just like, you're just scared. Like, you're just this guy. You want to be more important than you are. And you just understand that your role is to make other people better. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, so it was really cool to get that because, especially 2012 version of Loki is I have to have some kind of throne. I have to rule somebody because I deserve it. And it was cool to see how old Loki got to see. Well, I guess is he technically old Loki? Like, how the 2020 version of Loki, grew as a person, as a friend, as a brother, and to have him see those scenes of himself in the future, it was interesting to get those mixed emotions because he can see his own growth in a way, but then also not understand why he got to that point. So it was really interesting. I like that a lot.
Well, I
Got
think
you,
he
man.
did get to understand why he got to that point, because in the middle was him mistakenly sending the what do you call it, the villains there to that ended up
The
killing his
Dark Elves
mother.
kills his mom. Yeah.
Right. So he
Yeah,
kind of gets like what he did, and that's the point where when he sees that what he did, that like really breaks him.
Hmm.
Like as much as he
absolutely.
tries to like be, cool and like sarcastic all the time and everything, when he saw what he did to his mom, then he
He
really
broke
started to
down
look.
and
Yeah,
stuff.
he really
Yeah.
started to look
Yeah.
at
I feel
himself.
like Mobius and Mobius just basically called him a bitch without saying it. Like, you
Oh
just a
yeah,
bitch.
No,
yeah, definitely.
honestly, I got the opposite effect. I think he really respects Loki and kind of knows that Loki is more than what he's portraying. Al, how about for you, man? What you think about Loki and even Mobius, the way he played? Owen Wilson played him great, I think. What was your thoughts on the two of those guys?
Yeah. No, they did the episode well. It made me want to know how much is coming, because what I thought they were going to do throughout the series, they did in one episode. Like I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
basically, I
Yeah.
thought the series was going to be about fixing the damage that Loki did by taking the Tesseract and going out of the timeline. They fixed that shit in the first 5 minutes.
It's
You know,
5
so
minutes.
like his branch was fixed in the first 5 minutes, and then it was about, okay, let's take him to prison, let's do this, let's do that. Oh, Owen Wilson sees the file that he's the one that was brought in and says, now we don't know why he thinks Loki would be a great fix for who he's after, but then
Right.
we find, when we find out by the later end of the episode, but then he goes down in terms of then breaking Loki down. And then I figured, okay, the rest of this episode is going to be Loki causing mischief and Owen Wilson trying to bring him back in line. Nope, that shit got fixed again with a sit down in a room. I'm like, so what the hell is happening in the rest of the season? That because they already, like, I thought it was going to be the growth of Loki. Loki grew in one episode through seeing everything that happened over the last 8-9 years.
Yeah.
It was able to grow him in the one episode. So it's just making me wonder what the hell's coming on in this season.
Yeah.
That they were able to, because what is it, 54 minutes? I think that was the
This one
runtime.
was 54 minutes. Yeah, like
Yeah,
so
it
it
was,
was
Yeah.
an
yeah, it
hour on
was
this one.
legit. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
legit.
so
Yeah, 5
we're getting a lot.
episodes.
And I found it interesting that this was the only show that they actually used clips with the other Avengers, and
Uh-huh.
like they actually showed us Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America. They didn't do that in the other shows, so I'm wondering if that was intent. I mean, I know we run right out of the events of Endgame, but they
Yeah.
could have just shown him flashing out and then go from there. So I found it interesting that they actually incorporated the other Avengers in this show.
Yeah, man. I mean, and like you three have said already, man, I think Loki was done fantastically, and the way his growth was from the beginning to the end, it caught us up with Loki, or basically put Loki on touch with the Loki we last left off with, right? Because of the entire stuff that he went through. He didn't go through it, but he saw it and he got there at the end. And we'll talk more about like what happened there with the breakdown. And just want to get into now more details of the show there, because this is where we'll have some questions and some like different opinions on stuff. Signs, one of the first things that we see besides the funny like sentencing and his route to get to the sentencing court, was pretty funny, but we also got this explainer kind of thing in a cartoon way. And I think the explainer was it was absolutely beautiful and amazing. But I think that the explainer also gave me a lot of questions, and I want to see it gave you the same questions too, because this theory of the, what is it, the three, what are they called, guys,
Timekeepers.
the three timekeepers of the sacred timeline, made it seem like there was just one timeline. But then there's little things here and there, signs that said there was a multiverse, or there were other timelines that got put into one. So just wanted to get your take on their explanation of the multiverse, or for this sacred timeline.
You don't look happy about that question.
I think Sanj froze real quick.
Yeah.
So it's gonna have to come back, man. Oh man.
He looks so angry about that question, huh?
Oh my goodness.
Man.
Oh, snap.
I blame you too. Let's see if he jumps back on.
Yeah.
There you go, Sanj.
Sorry, guys. I had a little technical difficulty there. Skype just closed itself on my computer, so
Yeah,
very
it's all
sorry
good,
about
man.
that.
What's the last thing you heard?
You're saying that you were talking about when they did the
Explainer of the
no,
multiverse.
no, when they did the interview, when they were sentencing Loki. That you were just saying that.
Oh, okay. So I'll get you from there, man. So we'll jump back in at that point then. All right.
All right, cool.
All right, ready? All right, here we go. All right, guys. Sorry about there. Little difficulties on the this whole Skype thing, but we'll try to get it worked out. So listen, I was just asking you, Sanj, really quickly because of everything that was going on, the sentencing and everything happening as far as like him going to the court was the explainer that they gave him. The little video. It was done in like a cartoon type of form, and it was done
That was
so well.
hilarious.
Yeah. But I think I have a lot of questions regarding that, and I wanted to hear your guys' opinions about what I heard because I've got different thoughts on what they were trying to say, and I also don't believe some of it as well because they basically said that these three timekeepers have a sacred timeline. To me, it wasn't sacred timelines, like there's more than one. They said sacred timeline like it was just one thing. But I have questions now because they said they also threw in there were if the timelines got crossed or things like that, they would cause a multiverse or madness, basically hinting at Doctor Strange too. But they were saying there's a multiverse if things start happening. So it made it seem like are there more than one timeline happening at once? Like, what's your thought on that, Sanj?
So yeah, I was confused with that too because as we understand it from Spider-Man, the Miles Morales Spider-Man, there is a multiverse because they had multiple iterations of Spider-Man in that movie, right? So we already know that there's multiple iterations of everybody out there. So then they say, well, there was a multiverse war, and the way they solved it was to condense everything into the sacred timeline, and they basically plan out everything that happens, which I thought that was weird. They plan out everything that happens, and then the TVA, they just enforce it and make sure everybody does what they're supposed to do. But then Loki pointed out that they won the Infinity War by using time travel, and they're like, well, that was supposed to happen. But then if there's one sacred timeline, then people aren't supposed to travel through time in the timeline. You know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
was confusing that
Yeah.
they did that. So then even Loki himself, right?
Hmm.
So then how are these variants, that as they call them, how do they happen? How do they get created? And if that's the case, how did the Tesseract then move him through time? It really didn't move him through time. It just moved him, somewhere else in time,
Hmm.
and it only happened that way because somebody else did something. So why is he the variant if it was caused by somebody else's actions and their actions were supposed to happen? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because they're saying
Gotcha.
they were supposed to do the time heist. That was supposed to happen. So if that was supposed to happen, then everything that happened is supposed to happen. So then Loki's supposed to get the Tesseract and then go out of sync then. So then he's only doing what he's supposed to do, but then you're telling him he's not doing what he's supposed to do. So I'm confused.
There's a theory about that.
There is a theory about
Yeah,
There's a
I would
theory
love to
about
hear
that.
it, Brandon. What's the theory, doggy? We'll talk to you. What do you think about all that stuff?
I mean, so I've got a lot to say. I mean, one of the main things though that I'll touch on is that we learned just before, I want to say just before Infinity War, I believe, or just before Spider-Man, no, Far From Home, that the movies are a different universe than the comics. So while they're both happening or have happened, the Marvel comics is Earth 616, which we all know, but the movie universe is like Earth like 199999999 or some nonsense like that.
Really? I
So
always thought this was the 616.
this is not the 616. The comics is 616.
Gotcha.
So, considering the fact that we are now saying that both things are happening or coexisting, the multiverse war that they said already happened actually did happen. It happened in the Marvel Comics back in 2015. where they had a Secret Wars event where they multiversal heroes and Avengers actually specifically had kind of crossed over and met each other to stop something from happening. And in that, the sacred timeline, as was put in the comics, became one. So they actually merged into one thing, and new events started happening, and a new comic started branching from that. Kind of like what happened in DC when they had their event back in like the early 2000s, late 90s.
Right.
So like the same thing with Earth Prime, Superboy Prime, and all that. Infinite Crisis. Sorry. Yeah. So like just like the same thing, two realities had to merge in order to save all reality. And so I believe that was the multiverse war they talked about that had already happened. And so now the TVA is trying to prevent another one from happening, which I think is now obviously because of the multiverse of madness, potentially No Way Home. Basically anything coming up down the line is now multiverse based. I think something happens in this show to allow for all of this to happen, whether it's Loki himself or things that happen because of Loki in this show.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have some predictions at the end of this about what this show is going. I have my theory. Yeah, I'll let you guys know. How about you? How did that explainer kind of explain the multiverse or the sacred timeline to you?
See, I was confused because they didn't explain what happened to the other ones. Like they say that there was some multiversal war, and that these three timekeepers came and created a sacred timeline. But now, did they merge all these timelines into this sacred timeline? Or, and what I think is happening is they declared a sacred timeline, and their way of protecting that timeline is by not letting the other universes interact with it. So where we get
Brandon likes it.
Yeah, so these variants are increasing the ability for those other universes to get back in and then create that war that they're trying to prevent from happening again. So that's why they have to prevent these variants, because it opens doorways for those other universes to get in. So my thing is that how we get the multiverse? Like, it's not that we create the multiverse, we just become aware of it because too many variants occur.
That's what I was thinking.
But the way they illustrated it though in the video, it made it seem like they condensed the timelines into one. Like that's the way they illustrated it though.
So I think that the TVA are actually bad people, and they're saying these things, just like Al said, to cause less of these variants from becoming aware of other multiverses or other universes, or just becoming aware of the multiverse in general. So I think they're trying to say, like, this is the sacred timeline, so that way you don't fuck it up. Like, so you don't do anything that makes you guys or something happen that makes people aware of the multiverse in general. So I think they're saying that because of the organization they are.
And I would agree with Hobbs saying that they're probably bad people because of the fact that they're declaring what's supposed to happen, and then, their people on the ground are supposed to make sure that that's what happens. Because if that's what happens, if they declare what happens, that means they have a certain goal in mind. Like they need a certain outcome. So they're leading up to some event that they need to happen, and everything needs to happen a certain way for this event to happen. So that's why they're so intent on protecting, this course of events. So I would probably think that they're not what they seem. If bad or good, they're definitely not what they seem.
I mean, even with a drawer full of Infinity Stones, like those came from somewhere.
And why are they so militant about it? Because some of these variants obviously don't know they're variants. Like Loki didn't know he was a variant.
And then the other dude, like they didn't give him. He's like, y'all didn't give me a ticket, and they just like out like just.
No, he didn't want the
He didn't want the ticket.
He didn't want no fucking
they
ticket.
just like they could have just sent him back to get a ticket. You know what I'm saying? It's like
he was definitely a New York defense attorney, dude. That was such a New York defense.
They just did away with them like so quick. I'm like, oh come on, And then
how about when they first see Loki? She just baps him in the head and then slowed him down to 1/16.
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, I slowed you down, but you feeling all of that in real time. Like they're
time.
vicious, man.
Yeah, see Al, what you said about the timeline makes the most sense to me because if there is one sacred timeline, then how do you have this Loki that's taking out the rest of the people? There wouldn't be other Lokis. It's just that one Loki. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I don't know. It's just confusing. But at the same time, we only have this other Loki because he took the Tesseract and then branched off. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, maybe somebody else took something and branched off. I mean, look at that scroll that was in being processed. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
and it's funny because I watched the video. That scroll was in Captain Marvel. So I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of crazy. So I don't know.
And then
Like,
are
I
they?
decide, go for it, Al.
No, I was just gonna say, and is the TVA? Does it take place between these universes, like in like basically a non-universe? Because why would
Mhm.
those Infinity Stones have power when they were in the universe, but no power
outside of
there? And why does Loki not have any abilities?
They're
Like they
probably
laughed. They said, "Oh, he's trying to use his powers." Like they laughed at him for trying to do that.
they're
Yeah,
probably in a TARDIS, like a time and relative dimension in space somewhere. Like they're somewhere outside of like space time. If
yeah,
they're
man.
if they're able
And
to affect powers that way.
we kind of brought up the Infinity Stones there, Sanj. What was your take on the drawer full of Infinity Stones?
I thought it
Kind of
was
like,
hilarious.
dude, I was
They're
just
like
like, we've been sweating those Infinity Stones for 10 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, paperweights.
I thought it was hilarious. And just the look on Loki, I think the realization, that starts to happen in Loki's mind when he realizes what's going on. He's just like, he's coveted the Tesseract and everything, and he's just like, this thing is useless here. You know.
It's an Easter egg from the comics because when they did the Secret Wars line, I believe it was like Doctor Doom who had actually went and grabbed Infinity Stones beforehand, thinking something was going to happen, and it took place in another realm. And so when they got there, he was like, "Well, fuck all y'all," and they didn't work. And then it had to be explained that like, yeah, no, sorry, they only work in the universe they were from.
Oh.
Oh,
But the
fair, fair.
fact that they had so many of them,
Well, we'll key into the fact that there's so many multiverses. Yeah.
right? Like, where did they get all them things from? Like, I'm interested in that. Like, where did they get each one of those stones from that they have a bunch of them in a drawer somewhere?
And
It's
why
just
does
crazy.
Kang the Conqueror look like a timekeeper?
Facts.
Facts.
Oh man. I mean, and then after that, after the explainer Al, we see him talking to the judge, and we get to Mobius being, I guess he's taking care of another case that he's on, where it looks like another one of those timekeepers, the soldiers there, they were being executed by somebody, and they're, what is it, the thing that reverses time or take care,
Like
it's like a little bomb
resets
that
that
takes care,
time. Yeah.
resets the timeline, right? And it looks like someone is taking all of those, and for some reason he thinks that Loki can help him because we find out at the end of the show, of course, that there's other Lokis out there, which is kind of like it just doesn't make sense with all the stuff that's happening there.
hmm Now, I wonder if it's other Lokis or just one other Loki.
I think it's just one.
Yeah, I think it's going to be, and I think that's why if you guys saw on the end card, they list him as
Gender
a frost
fluid.
giant and then gender fluid. That female actress that we kept thinking was Scarlett Johansson and we thought was going to be Black Widow, I
Mhm.
think that's the female Loki from the comics in this, and she's the one causing all the issues that they're now going to try to fix with Mobius.
Gotcha, man.
Yeah.
But also, Sanjay, if you saw, there was like a painting in the background of where Mobius was doing that first investigation, and the kid goes, he did it, and you see the horns up there. And I don't think it's Mephisto. I think it's actually Loki that has those horns that come out sometimes.
Mhm.
And what's your thoughts on what's going on there on that aspect of the other Lokis or the other Loki?
Well, that was some foreshadowing for us. So if you didn't realize that they were talking about another Loki at that point, that should have been the hint or the the big reveal there until Mobius says it, like confirms it, I should say. But what's interesting to me is that which version of Loki are they hunting? Like, where is that Loki from? And how long have they been at this? Right? I guess in their world, time is a relative thing, right?
Right.
because they're outside of time and space and whatnot. So how long have they been at this where they now figure out, like, I guess the only way for us to stop Loki is to use Loki to, stop Loki. So is it that they've been trying and they've been failing, and then they realize that, okay, we're gonna have to manipulate another Loki in order to catch this Loki. So like we got to find a version of Loki that we can manipulate easily and use his wit to outwit himself. Basically, that's what I think
Mhm.
is really going on there. And then that could go either way. So like if the Loki in the show, right, that we were introduced to, learns that he's being manipulated, right? Now how's he gonna react? What's he gonna do?
Yeah.
Right? So I think it would be pretty cool if it was the female, they were hunting the female version of Loki, and then he kind of joins up with her, you know, to take them down. There's just so much stuff like that you can go with it. So
Yeah. Yeah, man. And then Brandon, man, after this, you see that Mobius, takes him on and he goes, before, we work together or anything, I want to talk to you and get to know you a little bit or kind of figure you out. And you get classic Owen Wilson there with his jokes, his timing, his interactions, and the way he speaks is just pretty awesome to see him back in the movies again and back in the MCU. Just to have him in the MCU period is amazing. And that the conversations that they're having down there, watching Loki's life, pretty much, it's pretty interesting. And again, like Sanj mentioned before, it kind of shook Loki to see what he caused and what he did. And yeah, Loki gets away for a second, but then he comes back and then he watches the rest of his, basically his life in the timeline that he's supposed to be in. And the breakdown, the acting of, first off, on Tom Hiddleston's part, that you can see him breaking down as he watches what happens to his dad, his mom, and then his relationship with Thor and what Thor says and what they do. I mean, that was just incredible stuff, man. What'd you think of all that?
It's my favorite scene of the first episode, just because, like, like I said, I talked about this last week that I couldn't wait for that event, like scene of events to happen where he understands his future, because we knew it was going to happen. I just didn't think it was going to happen this fast, and for him to see it like that, like this is the like the take deck of your life right now. Like when the film ran out, and he's like, this is all I got. Like this was my life. He's just like, I served the man who ended up killing me, like because I had this aspiration to rule. And
Right.
for him to see what he did to his mom, and that was the first thing that stopped the whole thing, was seeing what he did to his mom. For him to see what ended up happening afterwards with Odin, what happening with Thor, I thought it was pretty powerful stuff. And like Al said before, like there was a lot of growth there alone, because he could see what his future actions would cause and the relationships he ended up building. And I kind of think, like, like from a real relationship standpoint, like, if I didn't take my time to, build the relationship that you and I have, like what would it look like in the future? What will we have to go through to have that kind of relationship? And I'm like, we could have that relationship right now because I could try better. Like, like he saw what he could have had with his family and Thor, without having to die 8 years in the future, like just making that decision.
Yeah,
So
man.
I thought that was a great thing.
Very deep, man. And also, Al, man, one of the deepest part of the things is the questions Mobius was asking him. Do you like to kill? Do you like to
Mhm.
hurt people? And to get the answer from that, I mean, what was your thoughts on all that, man?
It was like it made me see Loki in a different way. Like I always thought he was um like intentful, for lack of a better word. But
Right.
to go to that extent, like to say that, oh, it was part of the act, like in order for people to fall for the pretense I'm trying to give, I had to kill people so that they could fall for the image I was trying to portray. Like that's
That's
like
deep.
I knew, yeah. Like I'm like, wow, like just to make people think he was that kind of person, he did what that type of person would do. Just to make, not because he was that kind of person, but because he just wanted you to think he was. Like I'm like, it's like wow, like
Yeah,
It made
that's
me
pretty.
realize, like, to what extent he will go to. And that's why I'm interested to see, like, if this really is the other Loki that he's going after, like the back and forth that will happen throughout the episodes. Because if you have someone that's willing to kill just to make you think that they're that type of person, what will they do when they don't have a choice but to
Right.
kill or to do other actions? So when you're going against yourself and they're also willing to go to those extents and to those lengths, it'll be an interesting, what is it, five more episodes, right?
5 more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oof, it's definitely a higher end series is what I'm expecting than what I was originally expecting before I saw this episode.
Like a more
Gotcha, man.
cerebral type of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Sans, what was your thoughts on that, man? Loki basically explaining to people, explaining to us and Mobius that it's an illusion. This is just what he has to do to make you feel that he is the villain. And Mobius says, I don't see it. I don't take it that way.
I like, I agree with Al. Like, I don't know whether to think he's redeemable or if he's worse for, doing it as an act.
Hmm.
Right.
It's like, how emotionally removed from all this do you have to be to just do it as an act? So like you'll think that I'm a lunatic, as opposed to me actually having a purpose and there being some sort of like, thought behind this, and like there is a goal, as opposed to I just want you to think I'm bad.
Mm.
I don't know if that makes it. I have to really think on it. Really think, does that make it better or worse?
Yeah.
I
mean,
think that's Loki's whole thing, is just like, I feel like that's almost the point of this show, is for you and him, I guess, to discover if he is redeemable.
right. And
Yeah.
like I guess his thing is to always keep you guessing. Now you can't figure him out.
Right.
Well, that's like Mobius. He was just like, when he called him the trickster, he goes, "Oh yeah, I like that." He was like the
But
trickster.
I think Mobius was tricking him the whole time, even
Yeah.
with leaving the device there, so that he could escape. I think all that was Mobius planned that, and then the chase and everything, knowing that he couldn't really escape. There was nowhere he could really run to, and that he'd eventually have to go back to the room and just be like, all right, I just got to sit here and like,
Just gotta
Yes.
take it.
yeah.
The TVA is formidable. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny, man. I think of some of the stuff that Mobius was saying. He goes, yeah, I think I was it the Lord of the God of Mischief. He goes, I don't really see that. You lose a lot,
Yo,
He broke him down.
You sure?
you do lose a lot.
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, so you take over the world, then what? You get rid of freedom. He goes, how about space? He goes, nice little trophy for you, right? It just seemed like Sanji was saying, he was playing him the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I
No,
mean, of course, with Owen Wilson's delivery, like the very like matter of fact,
Uh-huh.
like he's just being business about it. Like, I'm just trying to like do my job here.
So
and the biggest dig that I thought that he made was when he said basically that your goal, your reason for being is to fail so that others can become the best version of themselves. And then he shows the Avengers winning and capturing him. I thought that for someone who he was just talking to, whose goal was to rule the universe, to tell him, nah, your reason for being here is to make other people become their best self, was like, wow.
Yeah.
And then to show him, like,
And this
yeah, look,
that's what I said too. I was like, damn, they just showed him like that too. Like, fuck.
you made them. Very insane, man. Very insane. And then the episode closes with basically another killing of these the timekeepers there by another this variant, which we find out is a version of Loki. And then it kind of series just ends there as Tom Hiddleston agrees to work with Mobius. So that's our end of episode 1 there for Glorious Purpose of Loki. So just wanted to see, like, what's your guys' take on the episode first before we get into like more stuff. So I mean, Al, what was your take overall? Episode fantastic, good, okay?
yeah. For one episode to have that much information and action in it to set up, okay, here's the rest, was think about, we just went how long talking about everything that happened. That's one episode.
Yeah.
Like, you saw a complete growth of a character. You saw the turnaround of someone who was looking to take over the universe to, okay, I'll help you with your mission. You there was a lot in one episode, so and they did it well. Like, you didn't feel like anything was rushed. I didn't feel like anything was like, all right, this is too much exposition. They could have done this another way. Like, I like the way they did everything. Like, with all the information they were giving us to give us the breakdown of the timelines in that cartoon, so that it only took 2 minutes. Like, they got a lot in to set everything up that they were looking to do, and they did it in a quality way. So it got me excited very much for the rest of the series.
Gotcha. Son, what's your take on the first episode there?
It was almost too easy for them to break Loki down. It just felt like it was really too easy for them to break Loki down, even though it was like a 54-minute episode. So it's a longer episode than normal that we usually get from these shows here. But it was too easy. So who knows? Loki might still be playing them too. But that's what I like, that it's gonna keep us guessing as to what's going on, who's playing who, and what's going to happen. That I really like that. So it really fits in with, the nature of Loki.
Gotcha.
Like, where's the trick being played? What's the trick that's being played on you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for me, man, I thought the episode was fantastic, and some of my favorite parts were just Loki and Mobius talking downstairs in that office, man. I thought that was some of the best stuff there. The breakdown. Brandon said the best part of the show was the replay of Loki's life that was supposed to happen, and I just thought it was just fantastic, and it was great to see Loki again. But it's just a good show for a first episode, especially, man. Brandon, how about your thoughts, man? What's your thoughts on the first episode?
I agree with everything you guys said. Like, it has me guessing for what's coming next, has me guessing for what happens in the universe, like what happens with Gamora, because she's technically a variant herself. How does this multiverse stuff flow into the future, flow into what we know? How does this lead into other villains? Does Kang the Conqueror have something to do with this series, which pisses him off in Ant-Man, which leads him to other things? Like, I have all these theories in my head. WandaVision. WandaVision. Don't think anymore.
Lead us off, Brandon, man. Lead us off here. I mean, this has only been one episode. We got 5 more to go. Where do you think we're headed in all this?
Fuck if I know. I'm actually super
Brandon's
hoping...
usually our sage also. Yeah. I mean, he's been predicting stuff like correctly, and if he doesn't know, what chance do we have?
It's so interesting because, when we talk about, this is obviously, this seems like this is the show that is setting up everything that's coming, from multiverse to time and everything. And in my head, I'm like, all right, how do we get there in the 5 episodes? How do we piss off someone or something to the point where they need to step in? One of the, like we said, one of those timekeepers look like Kang the Conqueror, his face, helmet, and everything. How does he get involved because of this Loki madness? I'm actually really hoping that this Loki, which I'm hoping is the female Loki who could shapeshift into, any version of Loki she or he or they want to be, because, in the comics, Loki, I'll say I think that's the right pronoun I should be using for that. Their shapeshifting ability allows Loki, when they want to shift into any gender they feel comfortable being in. So even in a recent storyline, Loki, Thor had found some villain and was talking about how they shapeshift into a female, and Loki was just like, well, I also feel comfortable being a female, I'm your sister too. And in those comic book lines, when you see Loki in a different gender, Thor actually addresses Loki in that gender, oh, my sister, she. And then when Loki's back to being a male, oh, he, my brother. So wow. I think this might, I'm hoping that this is the female Loki just for the sake that we see a female Loki, but I think this may also be some Loki that is more informed and can shapeshift between the genders. So maybe at some point, this Loki transforms into male Loki again to trick Mobius or takes another shape. So I'm interested in seeing what this Loki can do.
Gotcha, man. Al, how about yourself, man? Any predictions for this 5-episode arc?
I think this creates. I want to see how they do it, but I'm expecting that this is what creates the multiverse madness that the other movies deal with.
All right.
Yeah.
And
So.
Sanj, how about you, man? What's your thoughts on what's going to happen here?
Pretty much on piggyback on what everything that you guys have been saying, but I do really agree with you that the TVA is not what they really seem to be, and that if the other Loki is a female Loki, it could be that they're a future version of the Loki that was pulled out and taken to the TVA, and they're trying to free their self. By doing all this. So I mean, I just want to see the showdown between Loki and possibly Loki and Loki and Loki and Loki.
Yeah, my prediction is the TVA and the timekeepers are all bullshit. I don't think three guys doing this to a timeline.
And then the timeline just breaks. And all hell breaks loose, right?
So I think that's one thing that those 3 timekeepers is just nonsense, and I do think that the 2 Lokis or the Lokis that are in the show, I know. I think that Loki is definitely going to destroy all this shit. It's going to happen. Destroy all of the TVA. Say goodbye to all those beautiful buildings and flying cars in the background. I think this is all going to shit, and it's going to go crazy, and that's why we get this multiverse of madness. There's a reason why that little commercial thing hinted at the madness part and then multiverse afterwards. So yeah, it's all going down. It's burning in hell. Yeah. Oh man! So listen, episode 2 coming out on Wednesday, which is amazing because usually we have to wait till Friday after we talk about it and stuff. So waiting just 4 more days there till we see it is going to be amazing to talk about next week.
I like that. I like that breakup of it. We see it on Wednesday. We talk about it on Sunday. We get the new one on Wednesday.
Yeah, dude.
Then we can talk about it on Sunday again. It just, I know you still have to wait 7 days, but it just seems quicker this way.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's definitely quicker.
I feel like I don't have to work for it anymore.
Absolutely amazing, man. So, guys, listen, if you are watching on YouTube, comment below. Let us know what you thought of Loki episode 1, Their Glorious Purpose. It was amazing for us. Hopefully, it was amazing for you guys as well. And if you were confused by the timeline, let us know because shit gets crazy in that show. So, if you're listening on the podcasting apps there that you listen to, just email us at therealfanreview@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought about the episode. And if your thoughts match kind of ours on the timeline and how it works and everything, too. All right, guys. So listen, the next thing we're going to talk about today, guys, is the movie that came out this week, which came out on Friday, was In the Heights. It's on HBO Max. Brandon, HBO Max has had a curse with you, so hopefully we'll see your take on this. So let's do this, man. Let's do a little quick non-spoiler review of
before you guys go into it, right? So I did not get a chance to watch it, and my wife was saying that she wants to watch it tonight, as a matter of fact. So I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to dip out if you guys don't mind, because I just want to experience it without knowing more than I already know.
There you go.
So I'm gonna dip out. It was great to be here, with you guys. Be safe, everybody out there, and I'll be back with you guys next week.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk next Sunday, man. Loki season 2. Loki episode 2.
Loki episode 2. Take care, brothers.
All right, man. All right, fellas. So listen, we're going to non-spoiler review of In the Heights. Al, your thoughts of In the Heights without spoiling anything?
It was an entertaining show. I didn't know, having seen Hamilton and how he handled a stage performance of a show and so forth, I was curious how that kind of storytelling would play out in a movie format. The musical, the music dialogue, the music and singing being part of the dialogue. And I thought he did a good job, both with the visuals as well as the singing and incorporating it into the telling of the story. And it was just good because it made you feel like you were part of that little community, that town, the little,
Right.
Washington Heights and everything. So,
Washington.
Washington Heights,
Washington
yeah.
Heights.
And it was just cool seeing them bring the diversity of the cultures together and not putting one over the other like sometimes you see shows do.
Right.
It was just a blending of all of them and how a community is like all the ladies in the salon doing the bochinche or the gossip,
Yeah.
and the fellas just ragging on each other and going back and forth, but at the same time being positive with each other and trying to push each other forward.
Yeah.
It was just great. It was just great to see. I mean, there were some points to where it got a little slow, but overall, I thought it told a good story. So I was happy that I got to see it.
Yeah, man. I was actually really, really hopeful for this because I did watch Hamilton last year, and Hamilton was one of the best things I saw last year. So I had high hopes for In the Heights. I don't think it matched Hamilton in any way.
No.
I'm still iffy on having a Broadway show made into a movie after this, but I do have to say I did have a good time watching the movie. It was fun. It was entertaining. It was a little long. There were some cheesy points to it, but at the same time, man, when you took the whole thing all together, the movie was good. It was really, really good. If I had to rank it, I would say you should see it. I don't think you need to see it like one of those like big, unbelievable things, but it is good to see. Had a lot of feels. I didn't know I was going to react to certain things that I saw in the movie that the way that I did, especially the ending, and then there's something that happens in the middle as well. So it was just really touching. And honestly, there was only like one scene that kind of like threw me off for a little bit, but then it went back to being what it was supposed to be. B, how about yourself? A non-spoiler review of your In the Heights showing there.
I thought it was good. I actually have seen the show itself In the Heights.
Really? Okay.
So in relation to the show, I think this is actually one of the better, well done, musicals turned movies. So I think this is like one of the top two or three, like in terms of that. They just never get done well. Like they really don't. So. I think it was great. It was a good time. I agree with you, Javier. It was fun. I don't think it was the greatest thing. I don't think it lived up to Hamilton. Anthony Ramos, I think, does an incredible job. I think the supporting cast is also very good, especially considering most of them have starred in Hamilton in some way, shape, or form, or in some other production. So it's funny. It was great to see. I forget his name, but he played George Washington. It was great to see him show up in the movie.
Real quick, right?
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But there was a lot of like, especially I forget one of the supporting actors as well. He was also casted in Hamilton. So like a lot of these people, they know each other, so you can see that kind of common bond, that connection really flowed from their connection from that into the movie, and they just looked very comfortable with each other, which was great to see. Also, coming from somebody who has worked in Washington Heights, the Bronx has never looked that good before.
Watch it, Brandon.
I was like, no disrespect to my BX people. I'm all
BX zone. Okay.
I was like, listen, man. I was like, no disrespect to my BX people. I worked in the Bronx, and those are some vibrant colors. But it was, in terms of cultural inhabitants and stuff, like it was funny. It was like it made me really happy for a lot of the movies, a lot of the songs, a lot of the scenes, like connecting the dots with my culture. And for those who don't know, like I'm not very fluent with my culture. Like I don't know how to speak Spanish. Like I don't do a lot of what you would consider culturally appropriate for Latinos or Latinx people. Like I just don't follow. I didn't grow up that way myself personally. So like it was cool to see my culture and kind of how other cultures blended within that Latino community. Even at the end of it, I was like, damn, I need to learn Spanish like right now. But all in all, I would say, like Javier said, you should see it. It's a good time. It's fun. HBO Max, like, listen, you get a pass on this one.
Finally, HBO
So
Max.
definitely go see it. I don't think it's a need to see, but I think if you like Broadway or show tunes or movies that just make you have a good time, definitely see In the Heights.
Yeah, man, absolutely, guys. Now, listen, that's our spoiler-free review there. That way, you feel comfortable to listen to what we have to say about the movie. It maybe helps you kind of like push you to go see it or give you a little gentle nudge to go check it out. So now we're going to get into the spoiler review of it, and we're going to get into some details here. And if you have seen the movie, please continue on. If you haven't seen the movie, I wouldn't suggest listening past this point because you want to be surprised. You want to just feel like you're part of the movie as you're watching it, not knowing ahead what's going to happen. So go ahead, give us a pause, and then otherwise, we're going to keep going right here with the spoiler review. So now that we're in this, Brandon, tell me more, man. I mean, you brought up George Washington playing Mr. Softy. It was so good to see him. But I got even a bigger surprise. Mark Anthony was in this.
Mark Anthony was in it.
That was so frustrating for me.
Really? Do tell Al.
Hangover.
Huh? Not only because to have a musical performer like him, and I know he does both act and music, but to have a musical performer of his caliber in the show, and he doesn't do one song. Like,
Yeah.
I
It would have been
kept,
nice to see him sing.
yeah, come on, just to hear him because he has as much as he is trying to act, he has a great voice. He can sing his ass off. So
Yeah.
to not have him do one song. I was because that's what I kept waiting for. Once they showed him, I was like, you don't bring him on and give him a 5-second clip.
Doggy.
And
That's the
then
old
you don't
shit
let him
factor
sing.
right there. Oh shit.
That's
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
when they showed his face, and I was like,
Yo, he looked like he did that little scene well because like he
Yeah.
really looked like he had been doing nothing but drinking in that room.
Wait, you
So
heard Anthony
yeah.
Ramos? Is that your first beer today? I'm like, bro, there's 3 empty beer cans on beer bottles on right to your right.
Bro, that's Mark Anthony. Put some respect on that name. He had all the beers he won, all right?
Man.
Yeah, man. But let's talk about like the movie itself, man, because the movie itself, like I said, it was really good. I did enjoy it. I honestly teared up like 2-3 times in the thing. I teared up for the abuela passing away there at the end. I saw when I saw her laying down and looking at the people, I was like, oh no, they're gonna kill off abuela, and sure enough, like her song, talking to her mom and then deciding to take the train.
Yeah.
That got me a little bit there, brought back memories of my abuela too, so that's what got me there. And then the ending as well, the ending of like just seeing the people, working together, talking together, singing together, dancing together. That was like emotional, and seeing how things worked out.
Yeah.
Also, there was like one kid that looked like my son that was in the movie that I kept going, "That's my son Elijah." Dude looked just like my kid, man. It was just insane. But I think a lot of the message was good too. I mean, it just shows you like you had different cultures. You had the Cubans, the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans. You had your black, you had your white. You have everybody in the movie working together for not the purpose of this to save the neighborhood, it's to help each other. And it's just kind of amazing to know that there's still hope for something like that in real life where, you have neighborhoods that work well together like that. Not my neighborhood. Jesus. Can't say hi to nobody over here. But it did feel like Spanish culture to me. It felt like family. Even the little party in the apartment. I was just like, holy shit, I did that. In Washington Heights. We had the family apartment. A whole party in an apartment. It's just so crazy, man. But what was your experience with it, Al, as you were watching it, man? Did it bring you back home, or was it?
Yeah. I mean, it's been it's been a minute since I've been in that kind of a community, but it did remind me of that. Everybody knows each other. Everybody knows who's what. Everybody has that ambition, that hustle, that drive to be more than what they are at that moment. Everybody in that movie had something they were looking to do.
Right.
They had a hustle that was going to get them to where they wanted to be in life. And I like that there was no negative because you always see a movie and they always drag out the negative. This movie didn't have nothing. There was no fights. Nobody fought. There was no animosity. There was nothing like that. It just focused on their struggle and their movement through life
Just the sueñito, Al.
together.
Just the
Yeah.
sueñito, bro.
Yeah, kid. Like I like the when they had the blackout. There was no, they didn't show people going crazy. They showed people getting together, helping each other. What was it? The character Benny going in, putting that generator so he can get on the dispatch and get those cars out to get people around. I like going back to the thing with Mr. Softy. I like showing that conflict of the cultures, because you had the Mr. Softy, which is just giving out regular ice cream, and then you have Lin Manuel's character selling the piraguas and saying, "Yo, I own this, but this is my
This is my
neighborhood."
block.
Like, yo, you
I
can
like how
sell
Mr. Softy
your
was
stuff,
looking at
but
him.
this is my place. These are my people. So,
Right,
you
right.
know, it just, there was so many little things that you take for granted because you just live it, so you don't really, you're
Yeah.
just so used to it, that to see it celebrated on screen, like I just kept watching the movie more to see what was going to be celebrated next.
Yeah.
Like that relationship with the abuela, the
Mhm.
relationship of the father saying, "Listen, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do." When his daughter was like, "Yo, don't do this, don't do that," and he's like, "Yo, you're not the parent. Like, you're not going to tell me what I'm going to do to help you improve yourself."
Right.
And just to see that dynamic and everything throughout the movie, there were so many little things going on between all of the characters that
Right.
it was just great to see. And to
Yeah.
see that it was just all in a positive way.
Absolutely. And it's funny, I didn't even think about that, man. I never realized that there was no conflict, really.
Yeah.
The conflict, honestly, was more of embarrassment,
hmm
self-esteem, trying to do better. Those were the conflicts, not any kind of in between people fighting or anything like
Yeah, it was
that.
like personal
That was awesome.
like personal conflict. That was great.
Yeah, man. And Brandon, as far as like the music and the singing and everything, how'd you find all of that?
I loved it. I'll be honest, one of my favorite scenes. I think a scene that actually had me tear up because I just thought it was beautifully done was at the end when Benny and I forget Daniela, I think her name, when they turned the scene, they were dancing on the building.
Uh-huh.
And just the way the scene went with the music and the song and how it ended with them kind of sliding back down into the regular position, like that choreography was beautiful. Like that whole scenescape, and then looking
Uh-huh.
at the GW in the background, like like that's
Yeah.
honestly like when I worked in Washington Heights for like a month, and that time, like one of my favorite things was being on the roof and like I saw the bridge like that. And like, when you're driving in the bridge and you see like, oh, that's so cool, but like to see it in that kind of view, you're like, damn, that's cool. I get to see that. Like, I get to see that. And like
Yeah.
obviously when the sunset's hitting, it perfectly goes over the GW. So it's like such a cool
Yeah.
thing. So like it hit right there. The music was honestly super super well done. I mean, it takes from the original show, which is, obviously
Mhm.
if you've never seen the music is incredible. The talent singing all these songs was great.
Yeah.
I love the little motifs of songs from Hamilton in there. Like you can kind of
Uh-huh.
hear like My Shot or Alexander Hamilton in the opening song, and then
hmm
you can hear other songs as you go down the line. And I'm just like, oh shit! I'm singing along to the Hamilton song as the other song's happening. Like, so I love those little touches in the music there. That was really cool for me because you get the
Yeah.
composer's touch. Like you get Lin Manuel. Like it brings you back to Hamilton. Like
hmm
like and
Yeah.
that was a cool thing for me. Musically, it was gorgeously done with all the music, all the singing, all the dancing, all the choreography. Like I said, I think honestly that scene, that dance scene with Benny and Daniela, I think that scene has to be like nominated for something. It was just beautifully choreographed.
Gotcha, man. Yeah, my favorite scenes is the one that made me laugh the most, which was the first date at the club between Anthony Ramos' character and the girl that he was trying to, try to get to the date there. And the fact that, he was like, "Oh, I don't care if you dance with anybody." And then sure enough, she's like being twirled and tossed around all over the place in the club. And he's just like mouth wide open and stuff. So that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing. How about you? What was your favorite scene in the whole thing there?
Um, for me, the favorite scene, surprisingly, and I don't know why, was the pool scene. Just the way they put that scene together, because it really looked like they were at that pool,
Yeah.
and to choreograph that where you're doing the aerial shot, you got them forming those, like, it was incredible to
Yeah.
pull that off. And visually, I mean, there was so much in the movie to take in. I forgot the main lead female, the one that I forgot. I felt I thought it was hilarious that the main character's name was Uznavi, and to find out that it was because his father named him after the U.S. Navy. I thought
Usnavi.
Uznavi. Oh, kid, that I thought was hilarious. But going back, it was just the visuals and just like the girl that he was chasing when she's going down the street in pursuit of her dream, and you see the cloths coming off over the
That was nice.
building.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the visuals to
was
show
nice.
you, okay, we're in their head, and this is what they're thinking, what they're seeing. Like, I thought it was great because it never really took you out of the movie. It just took you from one part of it to the next and then back. And I thought they did a good job with that.
Yeah, man. I mean, if anything, I left the movie feeling super untalented. I'm like, everyone in this movie can sing and dance and do all this crazy stuff, and I just got my 2 salsa moves. You know what I mean? So it was just interesting. But I listen. If anything, this and Hamilton have opened me up more to seeing these like Broadway shows come to movies or Broadway shows on TV, because I used to not like I remember Les Miserables. Oh no, I couldn't do that one. Cats was terrible, like, so I'm like, okay, I could do another one as long as it's cool, So I got my fingers crossed for Platanos y collard greens right now. So yeah, man. So I mean, listen, I did enjoy it. I think people should see it. It's not like my number one hit of the year, but it's up there, top 10 still right now. So let's see if it stays up there, man. But I think this week, guys, we pretty much just have Loki coming out, and I don't think there's any big movie coming out this week, but we'll keep an eye on it and see what we can talk about next week. But definitely Loki probably give us enough to talk about, so we'll definitely be back for that there. So listen, guys, coming out of Long Island, New York, you just been listening to the Real Fan Review. And guys, if you are not a subscriber, hit that little subscribe button below there. Get into our channel there. That way you get the podcast right when we come out on video. And if you're listening to us on a podcasting app there, just hit the little plus symbol next to our name, so that way our podcast comes up to you every freaking Monday or Tuesday when we put out the podcast there. So again, we're talking movies, MCU, DCEU, all the big stuff. We're going to be going to see F9 pretty soon. We'll be talking about that too. I think next week we'll probably get you ready for I was going to say Final Fantasy. For the Fast and Furious there. We'll give you a prep there to get you ready for Fast and Furious Part 9. For the Fast 9, we'll get you up to speed on what's happening with our family. All right? So we got my brother B.
Adios, amigos.
We got our man in the chair, Al.
Have a good night, everybody.
My man, Al. And myself, Hobman, again saying thank you. Appreciate you guys listening to our podcast. Come back next week and we'll be back with some more good stuff for you guys. We'll see you on the next episode. Till next time.